The summer of 2025 will forever be etched in Europe's collective memory. Not for gentle sunshine or balmy evenings, but for a season defined by brutal, unrelenting heat. It was a summer that felt less like a passing season and more like a warning, a harbinger of a new era. A suffocating blanket of warmth settled over the continent, turning once bustling cities into silent furnaces and transforming ancient, lush landscapes into brittle tinderboxes. The air itself seemed to press down, heavy and unmoving, as if the continent was holding its breath. From the cool green parks of the UK to the sun-baked shores of the Mediterranean, the air shimmered with an intensity that felt almost alien. It was as if the very climate had shifted overnight, sending a clear and urgent warning that the world we knew was changing before our eyes. In London, the mercury soared to record heights, softening asphalt until it stuck to shoes and tires, warping roads and straining the routines of daily life. Public transport faltered, and the city's famous parks emptied as people sought refuge indoors. Madrid's vibrant nightlife, once the heartbeat of the city, vanished as residents hid behind closed shutters. The cool stone of centuries-old buildings, usually a sanctuary from the sun, was no match for the relentless, suffocating heat that lingered even after midnight. Paris, Rome, Lisbon, each city, a jewel of culture and history, faced a crisis not of war or economy but of atmosphere itself. The familiar sights of bustling boulevards and lively piazzas were replaced by empty sun-bleached streets and a sense of uneasy stillness. The numbers told the story with chilling clarity. Thermometers hit figures once reserved for the world's deserts, shattering long-standing records by several degrees. News tickers flashed with updates as each day brought new extremes. Scientists and meteorologists watched their warnings come to life with terrifying accuracy. Years of climate models and predictions were no longer distant possibilities. They were unfolding in real time, right outside their windows. This was more than discomfort or inconvenience. It was a full-blown humanitarian and ecological crisis. Hospitals overflowed with patients suffering from heat stroke and dehydration. Firefighters battled wildfires that crept ever closer to communities, while aid workers distributed water to those most at risk. Infrastructure, health services and entire communities were tested as never before. The heatwave of 2025 became a defining moment for Europe, a stark turning point that forced governments, citizens and leaders to confront the real, immediate consequences of a changing climate. Protests erupted, demanding action and accountability. It compelled us all to ask hard questions about the future we're creating. Families gathered on balconies discussing what might come next. Citizens wondered if this was the new normal, and what could be done to prevent even worse summers ahead. The silence in sun-baked streets, the absence of laughter in playgrounds, and the stillness of once busy neighborhoods spoke volumes about our vulnerability. The summer the continent burned was not just a season, it was a wake-up call echoing across Europe and beyond. The statistics from the heatwave of 2025 reveal a continent at its climatic breaking point. Spain's Córdoba hit 49.1 degrees Celsius, with Seville and Granada not far behind. Portugal's Alentejo region set a national record at 47.8 degrees. The UK, unaccustomed to such extremes, saw 42.6 degrees in Surrey, a historic shock. France's Bordeaux wilted at 44 degrees, Paris's rooftops radiated unbearable heat, and red alerts swept the nation. Italy's Corrente heatwave pushed Sicily and Sardinia toward 48 degrees, nearly breaking European records. The heatwave was a pan-European event, rewriting climate records across the continent. The searing temperatures brought a devastating human toll, far beyond broken records. This was not just a matter of statistics or weather charts, it was a crisis that touched every aspect of daily life, leaving communities reeling from its impact. Hospitals in Spain and Italy overflowed with heat stroke and dehydration cases. Doctors and nurses worked around the clock, struggling to keep up with the relentless influx of patients. Medical staff faced exhaustion as they tried to save lives in sweltering conditions, often with limited resources. Emergency calls in Madrid soared by over 200%, overwhelming first responders who raced through the city's baking streets, trying to reach those in distress before it was too late. The most vulnerable, elderly children, those with chronic illnesses, suffered most, often unable to escape the oppressive heat. Many lacked access to air conditioning or safe, cool spaces, making them especially susceptible to heat-related illnesses. With over 15,000 excess deaths across Europe, families mourned loved ones lost to the heat. The tragedy was felt in every neighborhood, as black ribbons appeared on doors and headlines chronicled the mounting toll. In France, despite swift action by emergency services, fatalities mounted among the elderly trapped in stifling apartments. Many were isolated, unable to seek help or relief as temperatures soared day after day. Schools closed across the UK, France, and Italy, disrupting education and leaving children confined indoors. The laughter and energy of summer recess were replaced by silence and uncertainty. The heat exposed how unprepared our infrastructure is for this new reality. Roads buckled, public buildings shut their doors, and transport systems struggled to cope, leaving commuters stranded in stifling conditions. Outdoor work halted in construction, as safety became impossible under the relentless sun. Projects were delayed, and workers faced lost wages and uncertainty. Agriculture, too, ground to a halt to protect laborers. Fields lay empty at midday, crops withered, and farmers worried about their livelihoods as the heat threatened harvests. The relentless heat bred anxiety, sleep deprivation, and exhaustion. Nights offered little relief as people tossed and turned, desperate for a cool breeze that never came. A sense of collective trauma settled over communities. People gathered in parks and support groups, seeking comfort and reassurance as they struggled to process the scale of the crisis. The familiar rhythms of summer vanished as beaches and cafes stood empty. The joy of outdoor gatherings was replaced by caution and isolation. In their place came an uneasy quiet, a stillness that spoke of fear and uncertainty about the future. And through it all, a deep awareness of our fragility emerged, a reminder that in the face of unprecedented heat, our lives and routines can be upended in an instant. As the land baked, wildfires erupted across southern Europe with terrifying force. Portugal's Serra da Estrela and Spain's Extremadura saw ancient forests reduced to ash, firefighters overwhelmed by monster blazes. Hundreds of thousands of hectares burned, devastating biodiversity and natural heritage. France's Côte d'Azur and Italy's Sardinia faced evacuations as flames threatened communities and air quality plummeted. These were not just wildfires, they were climate fires, supercharged by extreme heat and drought. The fires released massive carbon dioxide, fueling a dangerous feedback loop. The devastation was a stark warning. Climate change is a present danger, not a distant threat. Governments and communities scrambled to respond, issuing code red alerts and launching massive public health campaigns. Cities opened cool rooms, activated fountains, and distributed water to those in need. Outdoor work bans protected laborers, while empty construction sites symbolized a society forced to adapt. Emergency services, health authorities, and volunteers coordinated a continent-wide response. The UK declared a national incident, hospitals cancelled non-urgent procedures, and transport slowed to prevent infrastructure failures. These measures saved lives, but exposed Europe's vulnerability to a climate it was never built for. The emergency response was a desperate day-by-day race against the sun. The immediate cause was a powerful heat dome, a high-pressure system trapping hot air over Western Europe for weeks. With no relief from cooler Atlantic weather, temperatures soared, and cloudless skies allowed the sun to bake the land. But this heat dome was supercharged by decades of global warming from fossil fuel emissions. Every heat wave now starts from a higher baseline, turning moderate events into extremes. The Mediterranean Sea's record warmth acted as a giant radiator, intensifying the heat and weakening cooling breezes. Attribution science confirmed, a heat wave of this magnitude would have been virtually impossible without human-caused climate change. What was once a 1-in-a-thousand-year event now happens every decade. The science is clear, we have fundamentally altered our planet's energy balance. The 2025 heatwave was no surprise to scientists, who have warned for years that extreme heat events would become more frequent and severe. The Mediterranean, long identified as a climate hotspot, edged closer to the once unthinkable 50-degree mark. The heatwave's cascading impacts, drought, wildfires, air pollution, and infrastructure failures, validated dire scientific projections. Scientists stress that these events are interconnected crises, not isolated incidents. Heeding the warnings means moving from acknowledgement to transformative action. Every ton of carbon avoided, every degree of warming prevented matters. The future isn't set in stone, but the path we're on is clear, and urgent change is needed. The warnings are a roadmap, not a reason for despair. As the crisis faded, Europe faced a new reality. Adaptation is no longer optional. Cities must be redesigned, more trees, green roofs, and reflective materials to cool urban heat islands. Public health systems need to anticipate heat impacts, with permanent cooling centers and retrofitted buildings. Early warning systems must reach the vulnerable, backed by direct welfare checks. Infrastructure and agriculture must shift to withstand drought and fire, with resilient water management and fire breaks. These measures require investment and political will, but the cost of inaction is far greater. Adaptation is an investment in a safer, more secure future. Survival now depends on how quickly we transform. The summer of 2025 was a fiery warning, an unmistakable signal that our planet is reaching a critical tipping point. Across Europe, skies turned orange and thick with smoke, as wildfires raged closer to cities than ever before, forcing thousands to flee their homes and leaving communities in shock. These scenes offered a glimpse of a future shaped by climate inaction, where relentless heat waves and parched landscapes become the new normal, and the comfort of shade or a cool breeze is no longer guaranteed. We stand at a crossroads. One path leads to constant disruption and collapse, with floods, fires, and storms growing ever more severe, threatening our homes, our health, and our way of life. The other path leads to stability and hope, where communities thrive in harmony with nature, and future generations inherit a world full of promise. The root cause is clear. We must rapidly cut greenhouse gas emissions, ending our dependence on fossil fuels that poison our air and destabilize our climate. This means shifting to clean energy on a massive scale, harnessing the power of the sun and wind to fuel our cities and industries. This is a massive challenge, requiring innovation, investment, and the courage to rethink how we live and work. But it is also an unprecedented opportunity to build a healthier, more equitable world, where clean air, green spaces, and safe neighborhoods are available to everyone, not just a privileged few. Adaptation must be just and inclusive, prioritizing the most vulnerable, our elders, children, and those already struggling on the margins, so that no one is left behind as we face new challenges. Climate justice must guide our response, ensuring that those who have contributed least to the crisis are protected and empowered, and that all voices are heard in shaping our future. This responsibility extends beyond borders. Both at home and globally, we must work together, forging alliances and sharing solutions to protect our shared planet. The natural world can recover, given the chance. Forests can regrow, rivers can run clear, and wildlife can return, if we ease the relentless pressure we place on our environment. But this recovery is not possible under endless exploitation and neglect. The land, once fertile, is now at risk of becoming barren if we do not act. The 2025 heat wave was a call to see Earth as our only home, a living system that sustains us all, not a resource to exploit and exhaust. We must recognize the scars we leave behind and choose to protect what remains, restoring balance for the sake of all life. We have the knowledge and technology to act. Innovations in clean energy, sustainable agriculture, and conservation are already within our grasp. The real question is whether we have the unity and wisdom to come together, to make difficult choices, and to demand bold action from our leaders and ourselves. The time to change course is now, before more of our world is lost, and while hope still remains for a brighter, safer future for all.